November 13th, 5:30 p.m., meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. And Robin did indicate that she will be coming in a little bit late, and Jennifer is not able to join us this evening due to something that came up at the last minute. So you all know that. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda? Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to, first of all, add the HR addendum to item 6B under the consent, or 5B under the consent agenda, and then move for adoption of the agenda with that addition.
All right, is there a second? David?
I would like to second that, but I would like to set aside C, D, and E and include those in business.
Okay, we could move those to, we could create a C under business. Is that okay with you, David?
Yes.
All right.
Fine.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second, and the suggestion to move C, D, and E from the consent agenda to 6C under business. All in favor, signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. No one has signed up to join us this evening to speak at the podium, but we do have some reports from our staff. Laura, welcome.
Good evening. I'm going to do a little spiel here because it's American Education Week. And then I've got James Urlacher with me. He's Discovery, and he's a member of our executive board. And he's going to give a little bragging about what's going on at the disco. That's what we call it. Okay. So, you know, as an English teacher, I'm always going on and on and on about how magic numbers are. You probably hear me doing that a lot. But today, I'm going to give you a story in numbers. Are you ready? We have 11,291 students. We have 17 elementary and early childhood schools, 4 high schools, 3 middle schools, a couple dozen staff to help students at Prairie Drake Luther Hall, as well as in parochial schools and homeschool programming. We have, I think, about 4,500 students in summer programming. 1.6 million meals per year. 27 miles of sidewalk to maintain and shovel. Let me see, what is this? 1,000,003, no, shoot, that's not right. 13,312 computers and personal learning devices. 3 million square feet of floors. 22 sanctioned high school athletic programs, dozens of academic and co-curricular programs, something like 3,100 employees. Well, you need them. Look at all those things we got going on. Permanent, temporary, seasonal employees, substitute teachers, 9 school board members. So, John, you're so good at this. Are you keeping track? So, educating and empowering all students to succeed to the power of 4,752,345. You can't argue with the numbers. Happy American Education Week.
As Laura said, I'm Jim Urlacher from Discovery Middle School. A couple things I just want to talk about. Recently, our student leadership and art club went over to Quartz Plus, who is our business partner, and helped out with their Halloween party. I think they had about 1,300 visitors that night, so it was really cool to see the kids in action there. One of the things we've started at our building is called a bucket filler, and that just allows staff a time to write notes to staff members without really them knowing. They'll sign their name and put a little message, but it's just a way for us to do that. I think this last week we had about 68 messages to go out to different staff members. Some of the staff members made comments like, I didn't know that person appreciated me, or that really picked me up and I had a really good day because of that. So that's just one nice thing that we're trying to do at our school. So, thank you.
Thank you both for being here. Mr. Gandhi, superintendent report?
Sure. So, good evening, everyone. We'll start with just a couple of quick staff recognitions that are pretty big. One of our teachers at South High School, Leah Jolke, received the National Horace Mann Award Teaching Excellence. She's only one of 5 recipients nationwide to be able to receive that award. Couple of other big staff recognitions. Our library coordinator for Fargo Public Schools, Amy Soma, was selected as the 2018 North Dakota Association Technology Leader for Large Schools. And then lastly, one of our social studies teachers at Ben Franklin, Sarah Vogt, was presented the 2018 North Dakota Geographic Alliance Teacher of the Year Award. So extremely kind of proud of our staff. Also wanted to take this update, just a quick reminder to any parents that may be watching. Fargo Public Schools, and this is also a reminder for myself as I adjust to winter in North Dakota. We do have a school cancellation and winter policy process all posted on our district website. And just a quick reminder as we get into the snowy weather to keep their information updated as well, because we do try to be timely in terms of notification for school delays or school cancellation. Always trying to be mindful that we will make a decision by 6 a.m. We do work with all of our media outlets. We do work with, you'll see information on our school website. You'll get a call out. You'll get Facebook and social media notifications as well. But just kind of as we approach that season, we want to be mindful and give parents that reminder as well. Lastly, just for the board, just want to let you know that as we enter the middle of November, where we are with some of our task force meetings, so both of our early childhood education task force as well as our behavior task force have now had at least 3 meetings under their belt. Both of those meetings are now on kind of the downward slope of finalizing a list of recommendations that will be provided to the board, and I know that you'll receive some of that information in your board updates as well. But that's kind of it.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Gandhi? All right. Dr. Gross, ACT, data review.
Well, thank you very much. From time to time over the different agenda, some items throughout the year, we provide you data around our academic results. And tonight I just wanted to share with you the most recent ACT scores. And to do that, I'm going to bring us to our district strategic plan dashboard. From our home page, one of the easiest ways to get to it is if we click on the About Us link, which is near the top. Over then on the left-hand side, as anyone scrolls down, they can find the link to the strategic plan. Once I click on the strategic plan, it gives me a page about some of the information, the highlights of the strategic plan. But on the bottom, there are 3 links that are there. And it's the first one that I'm going to go to, and that is a link to our strategic initiatives and our different results. All of this information is available for everyone in the public of the Fargo schools. So if we go to the achievement link, the part I want to look at today in particular is the second from the bottom, and that is on ACT. On all of our pages on the strategic plan dashboard, you'll find a yellow button, or I should say most, and I think that's where I'm going to start because that will kind of give us an overview of what the data is on that page. So for anyone who is coming to look at ACT data or let's say our measures of academic progress data and so on, I would start with that. It kind of gives the overview. So you'll see that this is data from our students who take the assessment as 11th graders. In the state of North Dakota, every 11th grade student is able to take the ACT assessment without any charge to themselves or their family. When they take the assessment, they'll get a composite score and then 4 sub-scores, one in English, math, science, and reading. And really those sub-scores are a lot of times what people will look at as did a student reach that cut score or not. It is the 3rd paragraph in this Learn More section that describes what that is. And really that is a predictor in which, for example, for English, a score of 18 would mean a student is 50% probable of scoring a B or higher in that first English course that they might take in college, or 75% probable of getting a C or higher in that course. And that's why there's a different cut score for English, reading, science, and math. It's a predicting score. In addition to getting a subtest score, students will also get a composite score. And a lot of times that's what people will talk about. What did you get on the ACT? It's really looking at that composite score. There are 3 different ways to look at the data, and I'm going to bring us to this the first link, which is in the middle, the trend data. What that will do is it will provide anyone who wants to see more information about how our students performed a 5-year history, both from the district's perspective and then each of our 4 high schools. The district data is in the yellow bar, and that then would be that composite score. One thing I do want to say, though, again, this is most students' first attempt at taking the ACT, and many times a student will take it a second, a third, or like my children, a fourth time, to do the best that they possibly can. This is just data from when students took it as an 11th grader. Other data is provided to the families if they retake the assessment. So you can see that the composite score for the district was 20.6. And just to give us a comparison, on the North Dakota Department of Public Education website, there is a link to the state data on all 11th grade students when they have taken the assessment. And you can see if we compare that composite score, it would be down here in the bottom. So across the state, it was 19.6 of a composite of the 7,259 students who took that assessment, which then would compare to our score of 20.6. So a little bit higher than that state average. You can then, if you are looking at this data, you can click on any one of the bars and it will give you then the results for those individual subtests. I'm going to go to a different link to show you that data, but people may want to look at that. And then you can hover over the top and get some more data about that if you're curious about what those scores are. Another way to get that is to click on the ACT benchmark link. When I do that, I'm going to get the subtest scores in those 4 areas, again, English, math, reading, and science, and a 5-year history of that. These scores are not a scale number, but it's a percentage of the students who took the assessment who met or exceeded that cut score. So again, English was that score of 18. What we'll see right now is students at this time, about 54.6% met or exceeded that. The other thing we need to remember is that this is during a student's junior year, and since this is a predictor for freshman college level, many students will have at least one more English class that they'll take, their English 4 or their senior English, and then probably retake that assessment. So there's more learning that will take place. This assessment was given to juniors, and that's most likely not their last attempt that they'll take. If we compare that, what percentage then does that compare to at the state level if 54.6% of our juniors were there? If we look at the English, we can see at the state about 49% across the state of North Dakota were at that cut score as a junior. So again, the students in the Fargo Public Schools, there's a greater percentage of students who met that cut score. That is going to be the same as we look at the next set of data in math, reading, and science. You can see they are all in the 30s for the state level data. If I go and look at our data for math, we are, as a district, are at 42.5, which then compares to that 33% at the state level. If I look at the reading, we can see that district is at 40.7, and we compare that to 36% at the state level. And then finally, we look at science. It's 41.8, which compares to 31% at the state level. Again, in all of these subtest areas, a student most likely will have at least one more class, if it's in math, one more class in English that they'll take to continue that education, to get closer to that freshman year of college, and that's why many of our students will retake that assessment. The other thing is I'm asked from time to time is how do we compare nationally when we look at these results? That's difficult to do because not all states require all students, all juniors take this assessment. Some it is just by choice if I take the assessment or not. So to compare a Fargo or a North Dakota to a state that is not requiring this assessment really wouldn't be comparing similar data sets. So that's why I just wanted to look at both our results compared to the state, knowing that this is a junior level assessment. There's more education to come, and students will retake this test once or twice, or maybe 3 times more. So that just wanted to show you some of the data on our most recent ACT, show how you can find that data, and the same set of buttons is on most of the pages when it comes to the rest of our assessment results.
Questions? David? And then Jim.
Dr. Gross, you said the first one is free. What do they charge after that?
That That is a great question.
They all have to pay after that, correct?
Correct. Every time you retake the assessment is a fee, and I can find that really quickly by Googling it.
The amount isn't important. I'm just wondering, why did the state decide to do this as an 11th grade? It's based on cumulative knowledge. And this Bank of North Dakota gives scholarships for a certain level of ACT, do they not? Why don't they do it in the 12th grade then? Anybody trying for that is surely going to have to take it 2 or 3 more times to make sure they get the highest score. Why did the state decide on the 11th grade for the free one and then basically force them all, if they want higher scores, to take it again and again?
Thank you. One benefit of taking it a little bit earlier is that there is the opportunity to either take a series of courses that will help me be more successful in the ACT or college. One example of that would be a class that we've just now begun to offer, and that's this class called College Ready English and Math. It is an online tutorial that actually the North Dakota Center for Distance Education offers. We have students at all 3 of our high schools, comprehensive high schools, who are part of it, and it really helps prepare them for that next piece. So for some students taking it as a junior, it gives them that initial data point to say, what do I need to do to improve that score? For some students, my children, for example, before this was available, some families like mine actually did some ACT prep on their own. This is actually available through the school system, in which students can earn credit for it. The other thing that we are doing is we are looking at even a pre-ACT assessment that will be offered to our high school students to get them a data set even earlier to help them make some choices for courses that they take. Now, the timing of should it be a senior year or not, if it's the senior year, we would lose the ability to gain some of that data to help kids make some choices. But you're right, it may defray some of the costs for other families.
Jim?
The mandatory junior year one, is that a spring or a fall or a winter assessment?
That is in the spring.
Okay.
Brandy?
Fees for that are $49.50 to retake, and writing is $58.50.
Thank you.
John?
For how long has it been free for this first test? Is it comparable, the scores over the past 5 years, or was instituted in this period?
The data that is provided there is during the time period in which students were giving the assessment as a junior.
Okay, thank you.
Boy, almost everyone has asked a question. Anyone else? Thank you very much, Dr. Gross. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. I do have a couple of items here that are very small. On page 1, under English Learner Program Report, I believe, Anne Marie, I believe the sentence is to read, there are approximately 29 languages spoken amongst the 1,200, removing the word in. And on page 2, under Business Policy Monitoring, I do not believe, well, the motion passed, but it did not pass unanimously. So I would suggest that we end the third sentence there to say, upon call of the roll, the motion passed, period. So that's what I saw on the minutes. If there's anything else? If nothing else, signify by saying yes if you approve.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. On to our business items. Superintendent Eval Memo 48. Is there a motion for approval?
I move we accept and file the report under Memo 48.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? I'm sorry about that. Yes, I thought I was on a roll though, but thanks, Jim. Anne Marie?
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbacher,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes, motion passes. I am excited because we are going to be having a guest join us a little later. And I must have been so excited about this guest that I'm moving the meeting on. And Jim said, well, I'm trying to slow it down until she gets here. So we'll work it out. On to B, FEA petition memo 49. Is there a motion for approval?
President Knutson, I would move that we acknowledge the petition of the Fargo Education Association and direct that a notice of consideration be posted in each school building in the district, and that a determination be made at the 27th of November 2018 board meeting regarding that.
And
Second.
there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Rodenbacher,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, we moved the three items, C, D, and E, from the consent agenda to business, so we are on those. David, I would like to turn it over to you, please.
When I saw on the governance meeting minutes that this had been moved from a regular business item to consent agenda, I had called President Knutson and asked her why. And I was told that this is the way it used to be. And sometime in the past, it was apparently moved from the consent agenda to the business. And now we're looking at moving it back. And I guess the question, the reason I wanted it moved for today was so that I could understand why this was done. Today, there's absolutely no reason for it not to be on the consent agenda because everybody completed the form, everybody is in compliance. But there have been times in the past when there have been opinions expressed on different things, and I thought it was probably beneficial that those be discussed. I know there was talk the last time about what it exactly is that we're doing, whether we're just accepting and filing or whether it was kind of a confusing discussion. But my question to members of the governance committee would be, why do you think it's beneficial that we move this to the consent agenda rather than having it placed so that it could be discussed if somebody had a question?
So those here that serve on governance
Point of order, do we need to have a motion on the floor to have discussion?
Oh, possibly. See, here I go again, right? Anne Marie, we need a motion?
You wouldn't for this because your motion at this time would be to accept the reports, and this conversation isn't germane to accepting those reports.
Okay. The two individuals that serve on governance with me here today include John and Christy. So I would invite you you were both at the governance committee meeting, so I'd invite you to also share some of your thoughts. Christy?
The reason, David, being moved to the consent agenda is even if we don't all agree, we're expressing opinions, and it's an opportunity for us to file and accept the report as written. We can still bring it up at a later time during governance if we feel something needs to be brought forward, but the action of business that we're taking is to accept and file that report.
John?
This is having to dig back into the memory banks now. It seems like it was so long ago. My understanding of it was that essentially, whether it's in the consent agenda or on the business, we still have the same opportunity to discuss it as we're doing tonight. If it's moved under the consent, somebody can still move to adjust the agenda, pull them out, and discuss them. And putting them onto the consent agenda puts them where we have a lot of other documents that we are acknowledging receipt of without necessarily actually taking business on them. As you see, we have a lot of financial reports on the agenda tonight, that by accepting the consent agenda, we're essentially accepting and filing those as a board.
David?
I was pretty sure that that was why it was done, that we are in fact accepting and filing this. I guess that brings up the question then, what is the purpose of us making opinions? How are those, what validity do they have, or what purpose do they serve for us to make opinions? Is there a time that we do get a chance to discuss those, kind of air our laundry or whatever? That's what confused me about all of this.
John?
And that did come up, if I remember right, at that governance meeting, and it was determined that this is going to be a central point of the agenda of the governance training that we're all receiving in a couple of weeks coming up from the Aspen Institute to address that particular question and kind of the philosophy behind this governance style of our board operations here.
And we did also talk about, so for example, with suggestions for policy changes, whether they're broad sweeping or sometimes it's just a word here and there, that is supposed to go back to governance to do the work there and for that committee to make recommendations to the board for changes. And also, if there are comments on in that report that don't specifically have to do with policy changes, but that have to do with, well, just almost anything else, where it seems to be that there needs to be some action, maybe there's some discourse amongst us as board members, or how we're understanding some things, that ultimately that should come to the president, whoever that person is at the time, to work through those pieces of information. So, we did talk about that it had been in the consent agenda at one time previously, so I think that was part of the reason we thought, since it is not so much a agreement on our feelings and our opinions, but it is the formal action to accept and receive and file the report, not meaning that no action takes place as a result. Then we also did discuss, as John mentioned, well, the Aspen group is coming in and we're going to be able to have a broader conversation about it, realizing, I think, that we could end up making some changes too, but deciding at this point to move it on to the consent agenda. Christy?
I think a great example of that, David, is when I came in late after my father was ill one night to a meeting, I abstained from voting. Afterwards, we found out that I should not have abstained because I'd done my homework prior to that. President Knutson came to me right away and said, here it is. It was still written in a report that policy hadn't been followed, or not policy, but it hadn't been followed. So the president already took care of that. So sometimes it is that communication with the president, with the person directly affected by that.
David?
I move that we accept and file EL 3, 4, and 11.
Is there a second? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes, motion passes. On to board reports. Task force updates. Robin is not able to be here quite yet. Well, Jim, should we go with you? Sure. Okay, thank you.
As Mr. Gandhi indicated, the Early Childhood Special Education Task Force has had its third meeting. And I, first of all, want to take a moment to thank our administrative team. I have not attended the LRE ones, so I'm not really sure if they're working the same way. But I believe Missy and Bob have done an outstanding job really leading our task force on the path to hopefully coming to a conclusion with good recommendations. So thank you. Even though I don't quite understand the clickers and they didn't bring candy the last meeting, so I'm sure turnout's going to be down at the next one, but what the heck. I really appreciate the effort that the administrative team is putting into making this a productive session for the people in attendance. At our task force, what we really did at this last one was take a look at the work that was done the previous meeting, where we identified wants and needs from each subgroup. We broke into little groups of 4 to 5 people and addressed a variety of different topics and identified, you know, is there something more we need to do on that? Do we want to wordsmith it differently? After all of that was digested one more time, then we did a forced ranking. Those of you may think back to our superintendent search, where we had that forced ranking to determine, okay, who's sifting to the top. So we all did that, and then of course, just because they want us to come back, they didn't let anybody see those results. So we're gonna get all those at the 4th meeting, and then I think from there, really try to boil down to some recommendations that we can polish up and get back to the board and the administration, I think by early to mid-December is, I think, our date, and I think we're on track. The one thing I'd share that didn't surprise me at all, and I'm sure we'll see it in some recommendations, I'm not sure where we go with it, is this conversation has grown well past just early childhood special ed to really the needs of pre-K quality education throughout our entire community. And I know some of the people that are in the task force maybe don't really understand the law regarding what we can spend our money on, but I think we certainly can develop partnerships with providers. So I think we're going to see some recommendations that really aren't so much to do with the special ed part as getting quality, affordable pre-K more available in our community. Nothing wrong with that. Whether that becomes actionable for us as a district, we'll sort that all out in the end. But I think it's been a pretty good process so far. And again, I want to thank the administrative team. I think they're doing a great job.
Thank you, Jim. On to NDSBA sharing memo 50. I guess this is for information only, and it says it comes from me. Thank you to everyone for filling this out. And also, I want to mention on our homework too, for getting that taken care of for our review this evening. I really appreciate that. So I marked a lot of mine as for future study. That doesn't necessarily mean, however, that I don't believe that we are studying a lot of it now. I think a lot of what I marked, I just wanted to mention so you understand why I marked it, is that we have a lot of that work already in progress right now, especially with our task forces. But I marked yes because I feel it's that important to keep it on, keep on keeping on with that. So my suggestion would be if anyone has something specific that they would like to share beyond our written comments, to feel free to do that right now, and if there are any specific suggestions that you would like to make. Anyone? John?
I just think I wanted to make a point that it's really a well-done convention, and the law seminar was well done as well. I think it's really important that as many of us got out there as we did, I think it's such a great opportunity not just to see what's important for us as our board and our district, but it's also a great opportunity to see and hear and meet the people from across the state and understand their perspectives and where they're coming from. And we're going to see that, I think, a lot coming up in the legislative session, and where we have so many commonalities in our needs from across the state. So excellent from that point of view.
Fully agree. Brian?
I guess I would like to take this time and thank Jim Johnson for the past 2 years of being the president of the NDSBA. And I've known Jim for a long time, from having come from the West and Jim coming from the East, and all the great work you've done, Jim, in providing that conference for all of us. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. I know you gave a lot of praise to the NDSBA staff, which deserves that. But from my standpoint, having you lead us was very comfortable, and you did a very classy job at doing that, so thank you, sir.
I echo that as well. Anyone else? Okay, I would suggest that the items that are marked for future study go to governance, and we sort through that to see if they land some of them would land with administration in terms of responsibilities, others might land with some committees, if that's okay with the group. All right, thanks again for, Jim, yes, for all of your work, and for everyone at NDSBA, please pass that on. It was exceptional. It's really been wonderful the past, at least, especially couple years, I would say. And the law seminar, very, very valuable. Nice to have some local folks presenting at the conference as well. Okay, on to committee liaison and correspondence reports. Jim, I'm gonna have you take it from here, please.
Well, I've got a couple of items. First of all, one of the things that happened during the conference is we had a couple of state school board meetings, and we actually approved a new strategic plan for the state association, which is already beginning to create different work for our staff, which is a good thing. There are really 6 main goals of the new strategic plan. One is to continue to promote and advocate for public education, first and foremost, what we're about. 2 is to maintain high level of service and programs currently offered and continually seek to improve and adapt those offerings. And I appreciate the feedback on the quality of this last year's conference. 3 is to expand our legislative advocacy efforts. 4 is to evaluate and implement alternative training and communication methods. I think you're going to see a lot of technology-focused shifts going on in the association over the next couple of years. 5 is near and dear to my heart. We need to figure out how to increase our member engagement. It's great that they attend our conferences, but we need them to get involved well past that at the state level. And 6 is to increase our collaboration with other organizations and agencies. And the big one there is probably NDCEL, and we have already started some partnership programs with them. The first one being Education Leadership on the Hill Day, which I think is scheduled for sometime in January, late January if I'm not mistaken. I already shared out the task force meeting. I have a third item, but do you want me to hold off on that one or do it now?
You can go ahead.
Well, as many of you that were in attendance at the state conference remember, one of the things that we like to do as a state association is to recognize the efforts that local board members are putting in. And so we have a presentation called a Veteran Board Member Award and a Master Board Member Award. And one of our own, who wasn't in attendance at the conference, was eligible and awarded the master level of boardmanship with distinction, and I'd like to call Dinah forward to make a presentation to her.
Come on up, Dinah. Dinah's our special guest.
No need for applause.
Now, as I give you this, I need to tell you the rules to get this as well, and there's a little lapel pin for you.
Okay.
To get the level of veteran board member, you have to score 100 points, and Anne Marie is our official scorekeeper for this, I do believe. And you receive points for a variety of things. Being the president of the board or a committee chair at the board level, I think awards you 5 points for each time you do one of those items. Attending a state conference awards you points. Presenting at a state conference awards you points. Serving on a state board like Education Standards and Practices Board, which Dinah, by the way, is still on, even though she is no longer active on our board. She's still serving for our board and the rest of the boards. So to get to 200 points, which is what you need to get this particular certificate, you've put a lot of time and energy into public education. To get this fancy little lapel pin that probably nobody can see, You actually had to have attended a national conference or participated in a national event as well. And of course, Dinah has been to several of those over the years. So on behalf of the North Dakota School Boards Association, Dinah, congratulations. I can't think of a person who deserved it more.
Oh, thank you.
You can speak to the group if you want to.
Oh, I can speak to the group.
Would you like to speak, Dinah?
I just say thank you. It's a nice honor to know you're appreciated. And I'd like to echo the comments about Jim as the state board president, because I think that in my tenure, which was significant, the changes at the state board level were immeasurable under Jim's leadership. So I'm glad to see that he'll still be a past president for 2 years and have influence. And if your comments about the convention are I'm sure that that will continue to.
Thank you, Dinah. Congratulations. All right. I think we'll stay on this side of the room and go to Christy.
I was at the United Way Women's Luncheon, and then this morning I was at the legislative breakfast. Those were my connections in the last couple weeks.
Brandy.
I was also at the legislative breakfast this morning. Great information, and I do believe that they also appreciated everything that we did show them. So I also had on November 1st my centennial visit, and that is another amazing school among the many that we have in our district. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brandy. Brian?
I had an opportunity to attend the November 1st symphony concert at Fargo Davies, which was quite good. I had a chance to attend the November 8th choir concert at Fargo Davies, which was also wonderful. The students did great. I had a chance to attend a legislative breakfast this morning, of which Mr. Gandhi and Robin led, and I thought you guys did a great job. And it was fun to meet the legislators, and some I knew already, and we'll get to know them even more. And then the last item that I've had a chance to do is the financial reports of June, July, and August, and the numbers are quite a bit larger than the numbers I'm used to looking at and things, and so thank God I have a phone that it actually has the more digits on the phone than my calculator that I normally use. I've outgrown that. Fargo cannot handle that calculator. So, but it was quite fun to chum through those numbers, and there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I love it. It's a wonderful district, and keep up the good work, administration. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Brian. John?
As we just discussed, since our last board meeting, we've attended the State School Board Association Annual Convention and Law Seminar. And as you all saw tonight, we've recognized the FEA's petition, which means negotiations with them are coming up. I think it's single-digit weeks to our necessary first meeting. So I'll be looking to work with Anne Marie to schedule our first committee meeting to get planning for that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. David?
I was at the legislative breakfast this morning and thank both Mr. Gandhi and Robin for all the work they had put into it. And I have completed my visit with Discovery and will be at Kennedy tomorrow, and that will finish that up.
Great. Jim, I'm wondering if, since Robin Rupak for the presentation, and I'm continually amazed, but not surprised, but very, very happy to hear you in front of our community members and hear you present and conduct yourself, and the massive amount of knowledge that you have been able to accumulate by the district. I don't think it's surprising, because we wouldn't have brought you on board otherwise. We had the confidence in you that you could do that, but you always pull it off, and thank you very much. Jim, anything to add?
Just two things. One of the things GAC committee talked about, and I assume maybe Robin's just going to use executive privilege as chair and do this, is to assign out legislators to us as individual board members, just so we can get a little more personal touch. My guess is she'll probably try to do that by the district that we reside in, although some of us are in the same district. And we may have people that aren't in a district that has reps. So I'd look for her to probably send that communication out in the next week, and I'll visit with her to remind her that that's what I just committed her to. One of the things we would like you to do, and if you were not here today, or you just don't know for sure everybody that was here today, we'd like to send a individual thank you back out to the people that attended from one of us, whoever is assigned to that particular set of reps. And if the rep that you're assigned was not here, send them a communication as well with a PDF attachment of our legislative booklet. And, you know, just say, we understand you're busy. We had a great time with those that could come. Here's the information that was shared. And I would guess Robin will probably even give us a template that theoretically we could copy if we want to make it easy. But we thought that would be a nice follow-up touch to the breakfast we had this morning. And then the other thing is just make sure you have February 18th and 19th on your calendar. That's the crossover breakfast that we're doing with West Fargo out in Bismarck. We'll go out there on the afternoon of the 18th. We usually have a social, informal thing that evening, and then we'll have the program first thing in the morning. It's going to be at the Radisson this year. For those that have been there in the past, we typically were at the Kelly Inn, but we've moved over to the Radisson. So I think that's it from the GAC committee, from my recollection from the committee meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Rupak, did you have anything to add as a result, or following up to the meeting?
No, I was just going to say, I thank you for the kind words, but I really did want to give a shout out to Jackie, who's not here. She helped with a lot of the preparation as well and putting a lot of that information together, and the rest of my team, because I just present what they tell me and they make me look good.
It was nice to have quite a few questions from the legislators today, too, so I felt like there was some good interaction, and not everyone was able to attend, but a good amount, and from both sides of the political aisles, I think we had a pretty equal representation, so that was great. President's report has been passed around. I just wanted to mention I was at the United Way Women's United Luncheon last week, and the Chamber Eggs and Issues meeting. Today, obviously, the breakfast with the legislators. Tomorrow, I know quite a few of us are attending the Chamber Voices of Vision event. Sounds like we should arrive. I need to remind myself, get there early because it's going to be a full house. We have liaison visit forms due December 4th, if they haven't already been completed. The Aspen group comes here December 14th, so just a reminder that we all keep that on our schedule. Jennifer wanted to have me remind you that the Communications Committee meets next November 19th at noon. So I don't have anything else unless there's something that you feel I've missed. All right, then our next meeting is November 27th in this room at 5:30, and we are adjourning. It is 6:19 p.m. Thank you.